Good morning, Nigeria, and make you welcome to Enterprise Morning, reaching you from Enterprise Television from our corporate headquarters in Lagos State, Nigeria. I am Henry Igwebike, and today will be starting off from our newspapers, and right after that will be our main conversation also for today. Do well to be part of what we do. Have a say in what we say. You can find us, reach us when you visit us at enterprisetvnews.com. You may equally like, comment, and follow us on all our social media platforms at Enterprise TV7. Very so honored to have joining me right here in our studios is Emeka Matunago, journalist, public affairs analyst, development communicator, to look through all that we have from our newspapers and our conversation for today. Good morning, Emeka.
Yeah, good morning.
Thank
my pleasure.
Thank you so very much for your time. So let's kickstart today with the newspapers on our desk. We have three newspapers actually: the Daily Trust newspaper, the Guardian newspaper, and the Punch newspaper. So let's start with the Guardian newspaper. Yeah. So a big story: tax reform risks sluggish, uncertain execution timelines over 30. NSW. We have on the top strip there, Venezuela treatment lesson to Nigeria. ADC wants Tinubu. We have Maduro's pleads not guilty in U.S. court, says I am still the president. And on the bottom strip, we have APC draws battle line with Wike over Rivers political control. Federal government introduces new measures to curb Wike NECO exam malpractices. Obi chides the federal government on killing spree, over 40 slain in Niger State. Southeast-Southwest Alliance, shortest route to Igbo presidency. And that's coming from Oju Uzokalo, who is really gunning and hoping, very hopeful, that he might one day be the president representing the southeast of Nigeria. Lots of people might say, dream, dream, and dream. But let's take a look at all the matters. But let's just get to our talking point for today, Emeka. Venezuela's treatment lesson to Nigeria. ADC wants Tinubu. And of course, Maduro pleading not guilty in U.S. court. Still saying that he is the president.
Yeah, you can't say anything. You can't say anything, but he ought to have known better. Because his predecessor, Hugo Chavez, had a long-running battle with the United States till he died. Now, Maduro got in and couldn't manage the immense wealth of Venezuela. That is where you see leaders who become despots because they have no ideas, to govern. Next door, you have Chile. You have countries that have really made a good success out of governance. But you have, a vaunting, somebody with a vaunting ambition, somebody with a bloated ego like Maduro. Saying he's the president. President of where? Of the cell where they put him where? Of course he's going to jail. What's his name? The man from Panama, he's serving 40, Noriega is serving 40 years in jail. Now it should be 23 years now. So it remains 17 years, So he's going to join him there. He ought to have known better concerning the engagement of the U.S. with Latin American countries, with South American countries. He ought to have known better. So ADC talking about the Venezuela treatment, yes, well, I do not subscribe to unlawful deposition of elected governments, but I subscribe to actions that can put governments on their toes, keep them on their toes, that can get them, to be held accountable, because actions have consequences.
Now, Mecca, let's mirror it to Nigeria, because it's ADC is saying that this is a lesson to Nigeria. Let's mirror it to Nigeria and juxtapose Maduro's governance style, Tinubu's governance style. Both countries are wealthy, oil-rich countries. Both have leaders who do not listen that much. They are in control of the legislature, control of the judiciary. Maduro is running a one-party state in a state, and President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is saying, wipe them clean. So is there any lessons really there, or are we trying to maybe overbloat some of these things?
No, the lessons there are that, just as you rightly said, both of them are birds of a feather. You see Tinubu pushing towards a one-party state, whereas, this is a plural democracy. You see what he's doing, you can see clearly that Tinubu is the one behind the crisis in the political parties. in the opposition political parties. You see his boys, you know, they are the ones always attacking, you know, opposition figures, always dragging the presidency into odious attacks on opposition figures, particularly Mr. Peter Obi. And so that tells you that Tinubu is a self-absorbed individual like Maduro, who thinks that, you know, everything begins with him. It's just like, was it Louis XVI who said, I am the state? Or was it Napoleon Bonaparte who said, I am the state and the state is me? So, but at the end of the day, he was thrown out. You know, he was shown that you are not the state. The state remains. You are just a bed of passage. You lost an election, you refused to go, you stayed on. And so once you cross that line of decency, you should, I mean, any kind of treatment meted to you, it's, to me, is just. Because if you lost an election, if you did your best, you tried to subvert the democratic process, and then you lost an election, you refused to go, you sat put, then you turned the country into a one-party state, you've mismanaged the economy so badly that the people are being ravaged by hunger, and then you are sitting there doing what? Doing what? You have safe houses, we steal doors where you protect, but the people are not protected. Venezuela has over 303 barrels of crude in reserve, the highest reserve.
3 billion.
3 billion,
yeah.
Yes, in the world now. Venezuela's oil production is at $15, you know, per barrel. Unlike Nigeria, that is $35 to $40, which is very expensive. Now, a pragmatic and sensible leader would have been able to utilize it, you know, to transform the country. But he kept talking about petrodollar. He now tried to be selling oil in yuan. What does China have to offer you? What does China? China has no path to economic prosperity that can help any nation. The methods that China uses, the, you know, anti-democratic methods, can only work in China because they are lucky with the population they have, 1.4 billion. They are lucky. So they can, but you cannot export that to other countries because, look, you see, the United States prides itself as the bastion of democracy in the Western Hemisphere. They look at agreements between the US and Venezuela, you know, friendly agreements, bilateral agreements, that if Venezuela had any issues, the US could intervene and all of that. You saw all of those things. Then you know that the US operates by the Monroe Doctrine, which has been there since, was it 1824. You are aware. You are aware that the US prides itself as the guardian of the Western Hemisphere. No matter what people say, a lot of what you say out there is just hypocritical. Russia invaded Ukraine because he said he didn't want Ukraine to join NATO. But actually, Russia has been dreaming of all the former Soviet Union republics coming under it.
Yeah.
America has not tried to annex any country in the Western Hemisphere. No, it has not tried to annex any country. Yes, successive administrations in the United States have, you know, invaded, you know, intervened one way or the other, but not to annex, not to try and annex any country, you know, to themselves. But look at Russia. Look at what China keeps doing in the South China Sea, you know, and look at North Korea. They keep, you know, their citizens are in deep hunger. But that despot there keeps trying to, you know, I mean, keeps trying to turn, to, you know, keeps trying to reach, you know, to you know, develop bombs, you know. And what will it take to kick him out of power? It won't take anything, but the US have, they just put him one side as an irritant. So when you have lost the moral basis for staying in government, what are you still doing there? And the moral basis is the power of the people, the support of the people. You can use whatever principles. Tell those principles to Putin. Tell those principles to Tinubu. Tell those principles to Paul Biya. You know that people say it is wrong for America to come and bomb terrorists in Nigeria. I said it's because you are not the one in terrorists there. Yeah. The other day, very dark man, you know, brought out a video on Facebook. One man in captivity, captivity of a kidnappers. They want to now sell his gas plant, sell his house. His car has already been sold to bring out his pregnant wife. They now want to sell his property. What is that?
In a civilized country.
And there are many, and even to sell his land 100 by 100. And there are many families like that have sold. When you see distress sales, usually it's about, a family that has somebody in the captivity of kidnappers. Why should we be? And you are telling me that a government is claiming to have a legitimate basis to be in power and can't secure the people when the constitution says that government shall exist for the safety and well-being of the people. Then you have not lost legitimacy as far as I'm concerned.
It's actually so bad. We can't overstate some of those things, but these are the obvious reality before us. But let's move to other matters, and this time around the Punch newspaper we have insurgency. AU extends Nigeria orders joint military operations. Joshua, that's Anthony Joshua, may quit boxing after car crash. That's actually very regrettable if he ever does that. 2027 battle, Rivers crisis escalate as top APC governors back for Bara. And we have Nigerians caught household spending by 14 trillion as inflation bites harder. Emeka, let's take a look at that one there. I do not know. Someone said, I saw a bit of information somewhere that said Nigerian Stock Exchange that will hit about 100 trillion naira. We've hit 100 trillion naira in just the first quarter of 2026. And the lights at the end of the tunnel. But here we have it still. Nigeria caught household spending by 14 trillion as inflation bites harder. So there's still inflation in Nigeria.
Sure. Forget that they said the inflation fell to 14.something%. It's a lie. Inflation is biting harder because one of the things Tinubu said he will achieve is what he has achieved.
And that is?
That he will reduce the purchasing power.
To what ends?
I don't know. Why would any leader, think of something like that? So that's the problem. Two things. The purchasing power of the people has been significantly eroded. The purchasing power parity of the naira has been significantly eroded. So the country doesn't have purchasing power. The people don't have purchasing power. So that's where the problem is. Nigeria is the only country in the world where you have naira, where naira is used. But around us, you have 17 African nations that use the CFA. When we floated the naira, we forgot that many of these countries, all these Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, Togo, and the rest of them, Cameroon, Chad, they depend on Nigeria for a lot of their essential needs, food and all that. So when we floated the naira, we didn't recalibrate our exports. Because we're just calling everything smuggling. I said it at the time. All these things we are calling smuggling. Why don't we recalibrate them to become exports? Legitimate exports.
But is it because those exports are not measured such that it can reflect what Nigeria is taking out?
It's our problem. If we decide not to measure them, if we decide to call everything smuggling, that's your problem. After all, Italy some years ago, when they rebased their GDP, they added gambling and prostitution to it because they felt that those areas, they were really making a lot of money. So there was no point winking in the dark. There was no point trying to be so moralistic to the extent that, you were overlooking obvious realities with your economy. So they added prostitution and they added gambling to their GDP, and the GDP rose. So what we are saying is that, you see, when Tinubu came in, and some governors were touting that, Nigeria's petroleum products are no longer being smuggled across the border, that Okada riders in some countries were no longer. I was just laughing at these people.
Stations in neighboring countries have closed down.
I was just laughing at this. What are you? You're talking about Nigeria. You're talking about the most populous black nation on earth. You're talking about Nigeria. Why didn't you take advantage of all those things? Why don't you even have refineries in Benin Republic, in Togo, in all these countries, Burkina Faso, Mali? What stops you from having refineries in those places? So that you don't have a situation now that where it's alleged that there is an FPSO at the port of Lome, the free port of Lome. Now that's where, when they talk about importing petrol, they go there. Some of those with licenses to import petrol, they go there to go and load their ships and then come to Nigeria. That was the point. Why don't you refine the oil yourself in those countries? Why? We have a Nigerian oil company that is, I think, in Ghana. There's another one in Zambia. Why don't we pursue our economic diplomacy around areas from where we, that can give us comparative advantage, boost our exports? But what do you have? You have a situation where we are trying to kill or frustrate local refining of petroleum products. So why won't inflation rise? The people don't have money. You say there's money in Nigeria. Look, the way the pyramid of resource allocation in Nigeria is skewed in such a way that if you're not careful, you think, oh, there is money in Nigeria. Ask where that money is coming from. I hope you know, salaries. Successive governments have been paying salaries of civil servants with borrowed money, with borrowed funds. A lot of things have been done with borrowed funds. How much of revenue is Nigeria making? How much IGR are we generating? How much IGR are we generating? How much is circulating? So what happens is that the political class, which has weaponized illiteracy, ignorance, illiteracy, and hunger, they have, rings around the people. So what they do at, Christmas, New Year, Yuletide, Ramadan, Easter, and all of that, is that they release money to their loyalists to go and create a semblance of economic activity, cause traffic on the road. Yeah, these things are real.
Really?
So imagine one politician now going to buy, let's say at Salah, going to buy 100 rams. It will cause traffic now, yes, because they know a big man has come. So if you have something like maybe 5 or so, even this Christmas, you see our traffic on Lagos by the expressway. And people were saying, but they said that there's no money in the country. Yeah. Who are those buying? Of course, it's people who parked on the road now, because government refused to manage the situation. If the Kara market, if that place was started, if it was proper, the vehicles will be parked inside the market. Yes. And then anybody exiting will have to go under the bridge. Yes. Will not come out to the road. Will have to go under the bridge, to exit. It's a very simple thing. So you have better traffic management, but you can't tell those coming to buy those things to go and park in the mud. That's why they park on the road. And then, these things are orchestrated. Yes, if you don't look closely, you know that these things are orchestrated. You leave traffic on the road. If you move the traffic away, look at my 12. Since Governor Fashola, built a high barricade, between the slip road, the service lane, and the major road, by my 12. Don't you see that traffic flows more easily, on that major road coming from Ikorodu? Because if you are heading to my 12, you have to get into the slip road. So it's not as if you see bus drivers climbing like what you see all over Lagos, climbing over the median. No, there's nothing like that. And of course, you cannot even drop your passengers on the major. Where are they going to pass? They can't climb the high medians now. So that was a very creative solution by Governor Fashola. If you had that on Lagos by the expressway, of course anybody going to Kara will just drive in, and the exit will be somewhere that wouldn't even disrupt traffic flow. So when you look at all these things, what you're saying basically is that the government needs to do better. You have imported foodstuff from around the world. You say price of food items fell, but can the people afford them? You need to reverse that idea that you can reduce purchasing power. You have to increase the purchasing power of the people. Because yes, you must do it. You must do it. And there are ways to do it. You encourage consumption. You talk about dirty December. Who are those engaged in dirty December? Up to the point that some rooms, went for as much as, went into hundreds of thousands
Yes.
for a room, an average room for that matter. So it is these people from the diaspora, when they come in and, you know, they get in one of December and they go away. What about the local people? What about the people who are here from January to December? What deliberate efforts are you making? Okay, you have done something with your new tax laws. You talked about rent relief. You talked about reliefs. Why not input reliefs in the economy that can enable the people, for instance, you know, to have more money to spend, you know, to have more money to spend, to make it easier for people. And that way you'll be able to increase purchasing power. But what do you have now? Basically have nothing. And so that is why inflation is biting. And it's sad.
Very sad, Emeka. But let's take a look at other matters. Still from the Daily Trust newspaper, we have Boko Haram IED kills 6 soldiers in Borno, improvised explosive devices. Did you see that viral video of soldiers, of Nigerian soldiers who died as a result of, you know,
may their souls rest in peace.
As a result of running into IEDs? And one would ask, you know, in a country where it is supposed that Nigeria or the security operatives should be in control, should be three steps ahead, and we do not have even devices, electronic devices, that can tell that there is an IED somewhere.
Now, I'm happy you said something that we do not have. It's not that there are no devices. Devices have been there for years, for decades. Nothing stops us from getting those devices now. When Boko Haram was bombing churches in Abuja, the government got all those things. You know, when Boko Haram was killing people in Kaduna and some of those places, the government got all of those things. But where are they? They said they were going to get robotic devices, you know, to diffuse IEDs. Where are they? Why would soldiers run over IEDs when you have devices that can actually sweep before they pass, you know, at least advanced teams that can sweep the roads, you know? And you know, again, sometimes these people, you know, sometimes you see soldiers, they leave the major road and they drive on, you know, on the hard shoulders of the road. Of course, they know these things. So they also plant on those hard shoulders, you know, of the road. They plant these devices. So I think we need to upgrade our defense equipment, you know, our armored vehicles and all of that, so that we can have minesweepers. And then the Air Force, you know, you keep hearing the government saying they are going to get more attack helicopters, more aircraft. You know, see, we can win the war against insurgency if we have a strong air power.
But why is it that countries like Ghana don't experience any of this?
No, Ghana doesn't play identity politics. They try to avoid it. A situation where you have
more Muslims,
everybody doing that. There's nobody's getting in the way of the other person. You don't get, if you become a nuisance, Ghana will clamp down on you. If you start becoming a nuisance, Ghana will clamp down. Recently they said they were going to send away Fulani herdsmen.
Yes.
You don't turn it to a buzzword. A Fulani herdsman, then later you remove Fulani and you leave herdsmen that how can you tell it as a Fulani? What are you talking about? Don't you know the features of Fulani? Who are those who basically engage in animal husbandry, in the herding portion of animal husbandry? So when you play politics, identity politics with simple security issues, gradually they fester and they become, you know, they now build into a life of their own. The problem becomes a life of its own. So it's so simple. If we can increase our air power. You saw that the US took out many of those swap guys in Sokoto with drones. Yeah. So why, but our own drones keep crashing. One crashed the other day. Exactly. We go to China to buy drones. Can't we go and get advanced technology, advanced sophisticated equipment from countries that, you know, have, from the, like Europe, like,
But
Europe.
does that mean that all the so-called technology that China parades up and down, they're all charades? They actually do not mean anything, because just a couple of months before this attack or this abduction of Maduro and the wife, he had procured some air defense equipment from China. And all of them failed. And lots of people are now saying that it's now becoming obvious that in pressure, that China cannot stand even Western powers.
The question I'll ask is this: which major war has China won in the past 50 years? Tell me one major war that China has fought and won in the past 50 years. None. None. So why would I go and waste my money, buy military equipment from such a country? No, if there's any, tell me. Wherever in the world that China has intervened and won a major war in the last 50 years. Nowhere. So what are we talking about? Why? I mean, we know the US war is part of his, is part of the agenda of every president. We know the UK gets involved in combat here and there. Yeah. Germany, some of those other countries, India too, yes. India, they get engaged, all those things. Of course, Pakistan, we actually sent policemen to Pakistan and Belarus, to train as special forces. They came back and they were deployed to VIPs, to be guarding VIPs. So we don't even have an agenda. We just do things anyhow. If we had built special forces, like we had like 3,000 or 5,000 special forces, we'll not be having this issue of insurgency, because you don't fight insurgents with regular policemen or regular soldiers. Soldiers are trained, they get into engagements according to the Vienna Convention. There are certain things they cannot do. Yes, there are certain things they cannot do. But special forces are trained to adapt to, changing situations, to dynamic challenges. That is what they are trained for. You can send policemen and say Boko Haram is somewhere and you go there. There is a way they are trained. Even in combat duties, there is a way they are trained. So, but special forces, they study the situation, and they adapt to them. So these are the things we need in this country. It's sad. I started noticing, special forces, you will see some politician VIPs. You will now see policemen guarding them with the badge of special forces, anti-terrorism police. Yes. What kind of a thing is this? What kind of country is this?
Guarding a senator, a House of Representatives, and local government chairman.
Do you know how much was spent training that special force member? You now come and turn the person into a megad. This is that we don't value anything. Everything is anything in this country. We don't value anything, and that's why we are like this.
Very well said. It's actually quite funny, even if we do not want to see it that way, but that's what it is. We have a president who is currently somewhere, not in Nigeria, obviously, at a time like this when Nigerians are selling their properties just to rescue their brothers, their sisters, fathers, and mothers. And we have a president who is residing somewhere outside of Nigeria and remote controlling security in Nigeria. Quite ludicrous at this point, but that's the reality we have, and we hope that the time would come when we would have a leader who understands the Nigerian force, the policy, and which is safeguarding Nigeria from Nigeria, not outside of Nigeria with the remote control. Emeka will still be here to take us on our main conversation when we return. APC fires a warning at Wike over alleged party destabilization. That will be still Enterprise morning. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back.